ASMR format. Now, I will be doing a Q&A. It was requested by you guys, and I have quite a few questions already, but I felt like it wasn't fair to others that maybe still have questions to do that video without asking you guys for more questions. So if you're curious about something and you want your question to be featured in the next Q&A, then please leave it in the comments down below. If you don't have any questions, I totally get it. It's fine, but just in case. I wanted to say a quick thank you to my Patreons, Kayla Kane, which was the OG, the one that started the Patreon going, and Richards, Emmy Rose, Lindsay Franklin, Josie Nichols, Jessica Peak, and Carrie Bodik. I'm not sure. I'm probably butchering your last name, and I'm really sorry, but you know who you are, Carrie, which is, I think, the newest Patreon on my page. I wanted to say thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. I love our little community, and this Saturday it will be a new, we'll have a new Patreon only for the second tier up video. And so just check back on my Patreon page and check out that video. It's gonna be about The Conjuring, which is something that a lot of my Patreons ask for. So I'm excited to deliver it to you guys. And I also wanted to say that if you want to check out my Patreon page, there's a lot of publications or things that I share there, but you know, the videos for the Patreons are the ones that are exclusive for the specific tiers that they choose. Now that we got all that out of the way, I also want to thank you if you requested today's case, which is the Alcasser girls, or Las Niñas de Alcasser, which Alcasser is a place. It's a town in Valencia, Spain. One of the places that I really wish I could visit in the near future, but Valencia in particular, I think it's a beautiful place, and the story of today, it's going to take place there. I'm also going to give you a little bit of background because I have a little bit of a different perspective on compared to the blogs that I read and information and different interviews that I saw and read about on this case. And I feel like Spain's and other countries have different ways for teenagers to entertain, and when you look at from the American way, it's a little bit weird, and I'm gonna go into that. I mean, I do get that a lot of people were really not okay with this case, but also not okay with the girls were doing at the time that this tragedy happened. This is also a very long case when I have 100 pages of research about it. So I'll do today part 1, and I'm gonna share with you the story. And then part 2, it's gonna be up Friday, and we're gonna talk about who did it, or the suspects, and a little bit more about the investigation that, in my opinion, it wasn't the best. So stay tuned for that. I always want to know who did it, or who probably did it. So I hope you come back on Friday to watch part 2 of this case. Now this story is about a group of friends. They were all really, really young. And 2 of them were 14 and the oldest was 15. Their names, Antonia Gomez Rodriguez, Maria Deseada Hernandez Forge, and Miriam Garcia Iborra. There was a third friend, but she was sick at the time that these 3 girls disappeared. So I think it was in her destiny to get were all different, but somehow they made their relationship work as friends. The first one is Antonia Gomez Rodriguez. She was the oldest of the three, and as the other girls, she was born in Valencia, Spain. She was born on May 25th, 1977. And she was the youngest of four children, and described as a very shy girl by her friends and family, and not even in a bad way. But according to her friends and family, they always remember her being a little bit scared of pretty much anything and everything that was around her. They even mentioned the wind. You know, sometimes the wind would make a weird noise and she would get really scared. However, she was also a very kind and compassionate girl. And her mom, she remembers how she would love to go and find stray animals and just bring them home. And she wasn't just bringing them home, but she was also taking care of them as if they were her kids. You know, she was very responsible with her pets. And she was also very well known because she would be calling if she was going to be late. Let's say that she was going to go out for the night, and yes, she's 15 at the time, but if she was going to stay out longer than she should have, then she would call and let her parents know. She was very responsible in that way as well. Another thing that you should know, that at this point she dropped out of school as well, because she's, according to an article that I read, she was waiting to turn 16 so she could start working and making money. So yes, she was 15, she dropped out of school, but you kind of know now a little bit more about the personality or the kind of girl that she was. I'm gonna go insert my little thoughts on this. Back home where I'm from, you can drop off when you're 15, 14. You have to go until you have to finish elementary school, but that doesn't mean that you're obligated to go to school to, finish even middle school. It's actually optional, and it's recommended, but it's optional. So it's not uncommon for a 15-year-old girl to drop out of school. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm just saying that a lot of people reacted of her dropping out of school like, where are her parents? Aren't they gonna make her? Doesn't she have to go to court? Or, that kind of thing. But that doesn't really apply to a lot of other countries. So some girls would just like to start working, and apparently that was the case for Tony, which, again, she was the oldest of the three, or the four friends. The next friend is Maria Deseada Hernandez Foch. And yes, they usually have two names, first and middle, and then two last names. The first one, it's usually the father's, and the second one, it's usually the mother's, and that's how it goes in where I'm from as well. They call her Desiree, and she was born on February of 1978, so almost a year after Tony. Again, they were very close. People close to Desiree recall her as being very headstrong with a defined personality that was fun, loving, but she was also known for being very stubborn. However, Desiree was not the most rigorous student either. In 1992, she was 14 years old, and she was in the middle of repeating the 8th grade. So maybe she didn't have the best grade. So in America, there's the no child left behind, and I know there are some cases when they can hold you back, but more than likely you will always move on with your class, unless there are some other things that will stop you from that, because you have some kind of learning disability and you extra help, and even though, I mean, I have a child with a learning disability, and even though she struggles, she, keeps going and gets the extra help and gets pulled out during regular school hours. I mean, here in America it's pretty different. I remember being back home and you could be 14 years old and be in the 6th grade because you have to have good grades. You have to know everything that you need to know before moving on to 7th grade. So it's not uncommon again that, she was still in the 8th grade when she was 14 years old. And growing up, Desiree became focused on athletics, so she became playing all kinds of sports, and my daughter is the same way. I mean, she loves sports, so she'll be playing whatever it's on season, and I feel like this girl had the same, maybe she did have a learning disability, and she thought that, she excelled in athletics, and that's why she, she was kind of putting all the effort in her athletic, competition, sport kind of thing, because this is, again, every new season would have a new sport, and that's what she was playing, so she was pretty good at any kind of physical activity, and specifically sports. But Miriam Garcia Iborra was the 3rd friend that disappeared. She was born on July 28, 1978, just a few months after Desiree. Growing up, Miriam became known for her beauty. That was something that I read all over the place. She had this beautiful light brown hair, and she had big blue eyes, and they mentioned how she always caught the eyes of, the boys in her class and in her neighborhood. But Miriam spent a lot of her free time focused on ballet, which is what she really wanted, or she really loved at the time. She was also attending a new school that was nearby, La Florida Institute. That's the name of the school, and it was in a nearby town. It's called Catarroja. However, since she was just starting school there, she didn't have enough time to make new friends, so she would always spend her weekends with her hometown friends from Alcasser, which is the area where Tony and where Desiree were from as well. Like Tony, Miriam was often shy and reserved, with a sensitivity that made her a fan of poetry. And even her friends, they read her poetry, and she would love to share with not only friends but also with her family. So pretty much they were all friends, but they were all in different stages. Tony dropping out of school and kind of focusing and starting to work soon. Then we have Desiree, which she was more interested in sports, but she was still trying at school. And then Miriam was the one that, she was smart, she was doing good in school, she had goals, and she was focused on what she wanted. So as you can probably tell, they were all born in the same area, which is Valencia, and they grew up, all of them, in the small town of Alcasser. And obviously that's how they became friends. They also had another friend. Again, this was a group of 4 friends. Her name was Esther. I'm sure her name is still Esther Diaz Martinez. And in November of 1992, Esther was coming down with something. Apparently it was some kind of bug that was going around that kept her home for, that specific weekend. But again, what are the chances these 4 friends are inseparable? They're going everywhere together. They are best friends. And then she is the one that can't go with them. I feel like it was her destiny to not go to this specific place or go out that specific night where the other girls disappeared. So on November 12th, 1992, 15-year-old Tony called into a local station and dedicated a song to her group of friends. And in this call, you can hear it. It's on YouTube, but it's in Spanish, of course. But basically, the host asks Tony, "What are you up for this weekend?" I think the call was on a Thursday, and she doesn't really say anything. She's like, I don't know if she's nervous or something. But then he's like, "Oh, so you're gonna do something, but you're not gonna stay home, basically." And she said, "Yeah, I don't know, but I'm not going to stay home." So November 13th, which was the next day, Desir and Miriam, remember, both of them were still at school. So they were at school during the day. While the older one, which was Tony, she decided to spend the afternoon with the other friend, Esther. Remember that she was the one that was sick. At some point, the girls get out of school and all go to Esther's home. Esther knew that she was going to stay home and she wasn't going to go party with them for the weekend. But Esther's home was located, I think it's in the southwest of the area where they lived. Anyways, the idea is that since Esther lived closer to where they were all going to meet at her house and then, just go to wherever they were going for the night from Esther's house. And that night, there was going to be a big party. More specifically, it was going to be in a nightclub called Color. It was a fundraiser effort and it had to do with the school. They were going to raise funds for an end of the year class trip for one of the girls' schools. So this party that it was going to take place in a nightclub was to raise funds for that specific thing. So it wasn't like a regular club or regular party. But the interesting part is that the girls had neither of them had money to spend at the club. And remember, this was a fundraiser, so they needed to have tickets. They had no pre-purchased tickets to enter either. And if they wanted money, they needed to ask their parents for the money, but none of them asked for money in that particular weekend. I have to make a pause right there because I don't want you to think that these girls were party girls and that they were doing grown-up stuff. Back home is the same thing. Once you turn 13 or you're basically in the 7th grade, there is a lot of activities for kids of that age. You can be between 13 to 17. There is nightclubs for, teenagers in that specific age group. I don't remember, but I want to say that they call it matinee, or however they call here in America the early movies, during the day. Well, this is pretty much the same thing. It's a nightclub, but they don't have any kind of alcohol, or they don't allow smoking, or of course drugs or anything like that. It's a nightclub to go dancing. Usually it starts around 8 o'clock on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night. Sometimes they start on a Thursday. But you have to leave by, I think it's 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Here in America, most clubs close at that time, at least in the area where I live. And, it's not something, but back home, the real party starts at 10:30 and it ends at 6 a.m. in the morning. So it's an all-night kind of thing. So the little ones go from, I don't know, let's say 7 to 1. And then you kind of get mixed into another area, which is going to be for the people that are older, 18 and up. Just so you have an idea, okay? This was a nightclub. But since it was a fundraiser, I don't know how much alcohol or anything would be involved. I'm sure there was nothing like that. And again, the idea was drinking or anything like that, but I thought it was funner than the early thing. It's pretty common. I mean, back home, girls and boys do it all the time. They go to these nightclubs. Their parents know it's not that they're sneaking out, and they go have fun, and then they take the pass home. Usually, the girls get in for free, and the boys are the ones that have to pay. So, again, now you have a little bit of background of why they were going, if they were only 14 and 15, to a nightclub. Now, going back to the story, Esther remembered that they left her house at around 8 p.m. in the evening, which would put them close to the edge of Alcasser at that time. Again, she was the one who lived closer to the other town where the party was going to be at. Several people saw the three girls on the evening that they disappeared, but the timeline is a little bit weird because there's people claiming to see the girls in different times that don't really match up with the time that they left Esther's house. Specifically, one of the persons that testified that seen the girls was a teenage boy, and he was somewhat familiar with the girls, and apparently he was a classmate, or used to be a classmate of theirs, or it was related to school. So he decided to stop when he saw the girls and talk to them for a bit. His name is, I'm hoping he's still alive, Francisco Antonio Soria. And early in the evening, he was on his way to a graduation exam. I read a lot of, and I'm kind of making my little explanations along the way, because for America that doesn't sound right. Nobody usually goes to an exam at 8 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night, but it's normal in other places to be that way. When you get to your sophomore year, you have exams. So you do good all year, but then at the end of the year, you still have a few exams that you have to pass, some finals, and they are very hard. You have to study, you have to burn your eyelashes studying. They are not multiple choice, and they are sometimes later in the evening, or they are very early in the morning, and I'm saying 6 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. At least when I was in my sophomore year, my junior year, you just have to go through those tests, final tests, because keep in mind this, that it's a different educational standard and procedure. So a lot of people were like, well, that's kind of suspicious that the guy, is saying that he's going to a test at 8 o'clock at night, but it's not uncommon. It's normal, actually, where, other countries, that's how they work. And here it's completely different. Now, he claims that he asked girls, he knew about the party, so he asked girls, are you guys going to the color club? And apparently the girls said no. They could have said no because maybe they thought that he wanted to go with them. They could have said no because they weren't sure they were going to get the money to get in. It could have been a million things, but according to Esther, which is the other friend who was sick, they were headed that way. And this is how, this is the part where everything starts to get a little bit choppy and weird because the time doesn't really add up. Again, they were supposed to, or according to Esther, they left around 8:15 her house. And apparently when they left, another acquaintance or quote-unquote friend, but not really friend, more of an acquaintance, saw the girls sitting on the sidewalk a couple of blocks away from Esther's house. This is a boy. He's older than them, and his name is Francisco Jose Hervas. He was driving with his girlfriend, Maria Luz Lopez Garcia. Francisco wasn't really friends with them again, but he was friendly. So he offered them to give them a ride to wherever they were going. Apparently they were hitchhiking, according to what he later said. And they told Francisco that they were heading to the Color Nightclub. So I don't know if it was along the way or if he was heading that way because he had car problems already. But Francisco had to go to a mechanic because apparently he had a leak in the fuel tank. So he dropped the girls off somewhat close to the club at an auto repair shop that he was going to take his car to. The mechanic that Francisco stopped was on the eastern, I should say, edge of Picassent, which is the town where the nightclub is at. And the nightclub was in the western part of, or the western edge of this town. It is not, I mean, it's a small town, so don't get me wrong, it wasn't more than a few blocks away. So the girls decided that they were just going to walk to this place. Another person saw the girls along that route because where they had to walk was the main street that ran across the entire town. So that road would take them straight to the nightclub. Maria Dolores Badal Soria was the one that spotted the girls. She was 63 years old, and apparently she saw the three girls walking by her home that evening. When they asked at the time that she saw the girls, she said that it was roughly 8 o'clock in the evening, which according to Esther this wouldn't be possible because they were at her house at that time, and that would put them on the other. Okay, let's pretend there's a big freeway. On one side is Alcasser and across is Picassent, or this little town where the nightclub was at. So it's on the other side of this big road. It doesn't make sense, but this lady could have gotten confused with the time, but she remembers seeing them. She also remembers that she saw the girls get into a small 4-door white car, and which doesn't really make sense because they were just a few blocks away. But at this point we don't know who was inside the car. Maybe it was some friends that were like, okay, let's go and I'll give you a ride just for a couple blocks, something that a teenager would definitely do. And she also said that she didn't remember the make and model, but she saw it was a white sedan with 4 doors. And according to this lady, there was already a few men inside the car. Now, how big is this car? I mean, she's saying that it's a small sedan, but she remembered that there were at least 3 or 4 men inside the car already. So I don't know. She didn't recognize the men either, which it's a little bit weird. It's a small town. I know that when I lived back home, I knew who everyone was, or who was. If I saw somebody getting into a car in front of my house, I would know exactly who they were, unless they were not from the area, which again, it all makes sense at the end, but right now it doesn't really. I mean, maybe she didn't see close enough to recognize any of them. This would be the last time girls were ever seen alive. When the girls didn't return home that evening, of course, the parents got really concerned. Especially Tony was the one that would always, call home and let them know that they were running late or they were doing something. And, the parents were familiar with one another because of the friendship that the girls had. So if one would call and say, hey, we're safe, we're just running late, they just would tell the other parents and they'll keep in touch. But since the girls didn't contact any of them, they met up the next day. That evening at roughly 9:30 p.m. on November 14th, the parents decided that the girls were not coming back and that they needed to go to their local civil guard post. Now, the civil guard is just a few blocks from the club, ironically. And it's also the Spain's version of a nationwide police force. The parents reported the girls as missing, but apparently, according to everything that I read, the search didn't start right away. It had actually started a few days later, which it doesn't make sense in my mind because they're all minors, and I don't get the idea we're just gonna wait. Doesn't make sense. But by Monday morning, the November the 16th, the three girls were still missing. Their parents all knew that this was no accident, that the girls didn't have enough money to run away together, and even if they did, they weren't going to get too far, because of course that was the first thing the police thought, that they run away together. Now from the start they thought that the girls had been kidnapped, according to the parents. I mean, they knew that they didn't run away, so they always thought that they'd been kidnapped. So over the next week or so, the police interviewed friends and relatives of the three girls to try to get a better idea of who they were and, the last time that friends and family talked to them. This is when the civil guard collected almost all of the witnesses' statements, including the ones from the lady that claimed that she saw the girls getting into that white car with a handful of men. Now during this time, the civil guard also discovered that the three girls had not even made it to the color club. Somewhere along the road that ran through Picassent, which is again the town where the club was at, they were walking through the main street, but something happened along the way, and according to that witness, somebody picked them up. Miriam's father, remember Miriam was the one that had good grades, that she loved ballet, and she had plans and goals, and she was doing good in school. Well, her dad's name is Antonio Garcia, and he was pretty much the public face of the investigation. This was a huge investigation, very flawed, but a huge investigation. He was a hard-working and of course a heartbroken father, and he decided that he was going to visit every radio or TV station that would bring some publicity actually to the case. The civil guard began in the investigation of local sex offenders and, whoever was released from jail recently. They started in the local area, so where the nightclub was at, but then they expanded it into the neighboring towns. Sadly, that led them nowhere, and they expanded the search, and even expanding it even more, they just couldn't find anything. But after a couple of weeks, everyone was worried and looking for the girls. I mean, it felt like these were the people's daughters, like everyone's daughters. They realized that they weren't showing up, that they didn't run away, and that more than likely they were being civil guard were nowhere close to finding out where the girls were at. Just days after the disappearance of the three girls, there was a TV show called Who Knows Where. And this TV show was hosted by this guy, Paco. And he took special interest in this case. And he decided to bring Esther to the show. And she was the one, remember that she was sick. So she didn't go to the party that night, but she was one of the friends, of the group of friends. Because of that, the case managed to make its way all the way up to the president of the Spanish government. I mean, back then, it was Felipe González. On Christmas Eve of 1992, he received the families of the three missing girls and heard their pleas, promising to help with more forces to search in the hopes of finding the girls. That would have been the first Christmas that the girls didn't spend with their families. At that point, the search expanded to neighboring nations, even neighboring continents, and the Interpol was involved. Sadly, beekeepers Gabriel Aquino Gonzalez and Jose Sala, on January 27, 1993, discovered body parts. This was more than 2 months after their disappearance, and just a month after the families went to talk to the president at the time, or the government. And this area was about 150 kilometers south in the village of La Romana. This is where I get very irritated, and I can't believe that this happened. Even on 1993, this shouldn't have happened, but this is where the show actually really starts, because the incompetence of the police, the sudden changes and delays, and they're disheartening to me, so I can't even imagine how it felt to the families. They have a different procedure. I'm not sure if it's the same right now as it was back in 1992 or 93. But they had to wait. They found these body parts, but they had to wait for the local magistrate, Judge Jose Luis Port. I don't know why they need to wait for this particular person. I am sure that here in the States they have to wait for somebody to be the first to be there, but at least send somebody that it's going to, I don't know, make sure that nobody gets close to the area or something like that. But apparently they were all waiting for this guy, Judge Jose Luis Port. He apparently was overseeing an excavation of another body in a close-by area, but nobody understands why it took him hours to get to where these new body parts were found by Gabriel and Jose. When the two beekeepers found the dumping site, they also thought that the hand that they found was of a man. So maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe they just didn't think it was the girls. Maybe the beekeepers, when they called the police, they said, I found a hand of a man. And they didn't say, oh, I found body parts. In my research, it doesn't even say that, they found 3 bodies, and you're gonna know why in just a few more minutes. So maybe they weren't in such a big rush to make it into the scene, because maybe they thought that it wasn't connected to the girls that they were looking for. That afternoon, Jose Luis Port, which is the judge, finally made it to the area, along with his judicial secretary, Angeles von Guallado. Another thing was that incredibly, that same day, January 27th, 1993, the Ministry Interior had decided to replace the team who was in charge to look for the girls and decided that they wanted to send a new team in. Let's just change the team because apparently they can't find her. I don't get it, but I'm sure they had a good reason. It just kind of frustrates me that everything happened the same day. So early in the day, before the actually beekeepers called in, the team that had been located in Valencia overseeing the search was sent back to Madrid and was being replaced by another squad. This new squad that they were replacing was with the captain Francisco Bueno. This new squad was referred as the UCO, in case that you read about it. That's, the squad that was looking for the girls. And also had Lieutenant in it, Jose Miguel Hidalgo Dominguez. This guy also shared a lot of the frustrations he had with the investigation later on after everything was said and done and the investigation was done and everything, the trial and everything, but even he knew that something was very, very wrong. So the next day, after the bodies were found, the team that was looking for the girls all along was not in the area, so they weren't even there. The new team wasn't even there. The old one left to Madrid and the new one wasn't even in place. So that would be something that it's going to change everything in this investigation. And I don't know who the new guys were, but they made a lot of mistakes. The excavations of the bodies happened without the supervision of the same team, because this happened the next day. So somebody decided to excavate the bodies out of where they were, and they had no supervision. And they should have, because this specific team knew pretty much everything about the girls, and these people that were excavating the bodies weren't really familiar as the other ones were. And that is one of the reasons why I think this investigation just derailed from this point. I mean, the bodies of the three girls were found in this area, Tony, Desiree, and Miriam. They were found in this large pit, and according to their investigation, it was dug months prior to putting the girls there, or maybe they dug the pit or the hole, whatever, put the girls there months ago. Maybe it was even the same night or close to the same night where the girls disappear. That's as much as I could find about that. But the three bodies were in different stages of decomposition, and they were found stacked on top of one another. That says quite a lot, actually, to a lot of experts. Judge Jose Luis Port, which was the magistrate in charge of the excavation and the one that it took forever to get to the place, he wanted to keep it as private as possible, this discovery. Not saying that they were not going to tell people, but they were going to try to keep it as safe as possible. So he forbid the two beekeepers that discovered the bodies from speaking to the media or anyone, and kept anyone from approaching the crime scene without the necessary oversight. However, the crime scene was locked down hours after the discovery of the bodies, allowing the integrity of the scene to be compromised. Again, you don't have to wait for a judge to be there. I mean, they could have sent somebody from their local police station just to make sure that nobody gets close to the area. That's pretty much it. But apparently, since they didn't, then everything was compromised. The excavation of the scene was done so quickly after they got there after hours. That was reported. When they got there, they wanted to do it pretty quickly. So nobody at the crime scene took exhaustive search of the area before digging the bodies out of the pit. This is a big no-no. You need to take pictures as everything is, and then you move things. There is, I know here in America, there is a team of experts that each one of them has a specific task for this kind of I don't know, procedure, I should say. So this is very odd. Standard police protocol is to take photos again, and they need to check everything and do a longer procedure before moving or touching anything. In this case, the police and first responders decided to tamper basically with the scene. I'm sure that they didn't mean to, but they tamper with the scene. It's like the number one thing that you ask somebody when you're in a 911 call. You know, they're like, do not touch anything. You know, try to. What door did you touch? Where did you get in from? Where did you get out of? It's just one of those things that you don't want them to mess with. That's how you can solve one of these mysteries. But there was just a single standalone photo taken of the bodies as they were found. But all you can see in that picture is a blob of dirt and mud. There's actually, the picture is online if you want to look it up. It's, unless you're very specific and you're really good, it doesn't really look like that much. The bodies were pulled out of the pit, and police apparently discovered that they had been wrapped up in some kind of a large rug. Two of the girls had been decapitated, and their hands were bound by a black rope of some kind. However, along with the bodies, several items were discovered inside the pit. Unrelated pieces of clothing, bits of rope, pieces of paper, you name it. There were just random things in the pit with the girls. But just like the bodies, the police took photos of these individual items after they had been pulled out of the pit. So we have no idea how they were inside the pit, because nobody cared to take a picture of that. They were discovered underneath the bodies. On top, on the side. Where were these specific items? That is very relevant to the investigation, and apparently whoever did this had not the experience to make sure that they take the pictures that they need before touching anything. You can't do that. So they gathered the items and photographed them all together, just for fun, I guess. I don't know why. With several of them not even being collected as evidence. So let's pretend that in this pit there was a rope, pieces of clothing, and a piece of paper. They took whatever they thought it was relevant, and they left whatever they didn't think it was relevant behind. Let's say that the piece of paper wasn't relevant to them, so they decided to leave it behind. That is the most ridiculous thing that I ever read in my entire life. However, police would use one individual item from that crime scene to be the lead of their upcoming investigation. One item. However, they have no idea where it came from because they don't have pictures. They don't know if it was inside or outside the pit, or they claim that they knew. They claim that they found it inside the pit, but they had no pictures. So how are you going to convince a judge that it was inside when you had the time and your job is to take those pictures, or whoever's job is to take those pictures, because you need that evidence to support the claim or support the idea of a suspect. However, one thing was for sure: the discovery of these three bodies, these three girls who were just having fun on a regular weekend, actually did change the country of Spain forever. I run into a lot of blog posts, videos, and I'm talking about in Spanish, not many in just to kind of find somebody that they could connect to the girls. And we're gonna try to finish with at least the suspect, a trial, and a lot more, because up until this point all we know is that we found the girls, that they probably die almost immediately or really close to the date that they disappeared, and that they got into a car with a bunch of guys inside. But who actually did it, or who does the police think that did it? That's what we're gonna talk about next Friday. I hope I don't offend you with my remarks. I can't really hold back when something bothers me, and I've always loved the research part of true crime and investigations, and I've always been a fan of Discovery Channel specials and, shows and stuff like that. And I am no expert, so I'm not claiming to be one, but I know there are certain protocols and things that needs to be in place before moving anything or touching anything or tampering basically with any crime scene. I like to think, and I believe that they didn't do it on purpose. I like to believe that. But I also would leave with the other option, which is incompetence. You're either doing it on purpose, you're tampering with evidence because you're trying to hide something, or you're not smart. I don't want to say you're dumb, but you're not smart. Because those are the two options. This had to be dealt with a lot of people. So if there was one guy that was new to the force, he would have 10 others that have done this numerous times or had the training to do this. Maybe this area was a very quiet place and they never had to deal with it. But you have a protocol. You have a list of things that you have to do. They were digging up another body close by. They had to know what they had to do before removing whatever was inside this pit. Maybe they thought it was a guy. Maybe they didn't think it was the girls. It doesn't matter if it was a guy. He had a family. He had friends. He probably had a mother as well. So it would have been nice to know who killed the guy, if it was in fact a guy. I'm gonna leave it there because I don't want to finish this video in a bad note. But this is the kind of case that, again, leaves me with those two choices of dumbness or covering up stuff. And I never like either or. So it upsets me in a way that other cases don't. And again, this was in Spain. It was back in 1993. I'm hoping that things have changed, and right now they have a different protocol. That they have more advanced techniques and ways, and maybe even more training. And that this doesn't happen today. That's what I'm hoping. Please join me next Friday for the second part of this. If you want to hear about another true crime case, join me on Wednesday on my podcast, The Mystery